Today, the subcommittee is considering 4 bills. First, we have 4524, the Parity for Tribal Law Enforcement Act. This legislation would allow tribal law enforcement officers to be considered federal law enforcement officers for the purposes of federal benefits, pensions, tort claims coverage, and penalties for crimes committed against them. This would create parity between federal and tribal law enforcement officers in these areas, and it should help with the recruitment and retention of tribal law enforcement officers. As we saw in our previous Oversight Committee hearing, recruiting and retaining good law enforcement officers is a huge concern for tribal police departments. This bill would be a step towards improving this situation. Everyone deserves to feel safe in their community, and we will continue to work towards that goal for all Native communities. Next is H.R. 4748, the Unrecognized Southeast Alaska Native Communities Recognition and Compensation Act. This bill would amend the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, or ANCSA, or ANCSA, to allow 5 Alaska Native communities, the Haines, Ketchikan, Petersburg, Tenakee, and Wrangell, to form Alaska Native Urban Corporations in Southeast Alaska. Each urban corporation would be able to select 1 township of land equal to 23,040 acres of their historical Aboriginal lands in the Tongass National Forest to own in fee simple. This is the same acreage that other Alaska Native urban corporations in Southeast Alaska were allowed to select when ANCSA became law in 1971. ANCSA settled the land claims of Alaska Natives through a $962.5 million settlement payment and roughly 44 million acres of land, which was divided between almost 200 village corporations and 12 regional corporations established by the legislation. The 5 Alaska Native communities considered in H.R. 4748 were excluded from this list of Alaska Native communities allowed to form Alaska Native corporations in Southeast Alaska. Congress did not include an appeals process for communities excluded in Southeast Alaska, so only an act of Congress can allow these 5 communities to form their urban corporations. The legislation also contains provisions stating the bill would not affect any land entitlements for previously established Alaska Native corporations, does not affect the rights-of-way held by the state of Alaska within the selected parcels, and provides the Forest Service access to National Forest System roads until a mutual use agreement is entered into. Additionally, the parcels to be conveyed would remain open and available to subsistence uses, non-commercial recreational hunting and fishing, and other non-commercial recreational uses, with very narrow exceptions. Next is H.R. 6368, the Indian Buffalo Management Act. This legislation would create a program within the Department of Interior to support tribes and tribal organizations in the creation and management of their own American buffalo programs. These programs have benefited American Indians and Alaska Natives both economically and culturally. Historically, Indian tribes used the buffalo for subsistence purposes for thousands of years, incorporating it into everyday diets and livelihoods. By the end of the 19th century, however, buffalo were near extinction. Conservation efforts were enacted to restore buffalo numbers, and the species has had a dramatic recovery. The Department of Interior already provides some funds to tribes and organizations to promote the tribal management of buffalo. However, there is currently no formal program within the department. The funding for this program has also fluctuated over the years, and a formal program may help with stabilizing funds and provide more oversight. Last on our agenda is H.R. 6443, the Jamul Indian Village Transfer Act, which would replace approximately 172.1 acres of land owned in fee simple by the Jamul Indian Village into trust for the benefit of the tribe. Located in San Diego County, California, the Jamul Indian Village is part of the Kumeyaay people of Southern California, otherwise known as the Mission Indians. Despite tracing their history back 12,000 years, the Jamul Indian Village did not receive federal recognition until 1981. Since then, the tribe has slowly gained a land base for itself. The tribe has submitted fee-to-trust applications to the Department of Interior, with the oldest submitted in August 2015, but these applications have not been finalized. This bill would place the land into trust legislatively rather than continuing to wait on the administrative process. Additionally, H.R. 6443 would prohibit any Class II or Class III gaming under the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act on the parcels that are taken into trust. I am hopeful we can all work together to continue to ensure the bills considered today gain support and move through the legislative process. Thank you to the witnesses for being here today. We appreciate you being here in person. We know that you've traveled quite a distance, but it's extremely important to have live testimony as we go through these bills. So thank you for that. Mr. Frey-Hage, I would like to begin with you and with reference to H.R. 4524. In your testimony, you mentioned that this bill can be a means to strengthen public safety in Indian country. Can you expand on that and how exactly the department thinks that this bill will improve public safety?
Yeah, I think it'll improve public safety, starting with streamlining the process to make it easier to recognize tribal law enforcement. Ensuring the tribes have a process that's similar to what BIA does. That will speed up the process to ensure they have law enforcement who can be on the streets, supporting public safety. Second, as noted, just the issue of pay and benefits is really critical in terms of competing in a really tough market. There's law enforcement shortages all over the country. Every jurisdiction deals with it. So by increasing the benefits that tribal law enforcement can offer to their officers for things such as pension, especially retirement, that's going to help with their ability to compete with other employers.
I thank you for that. And then I also want to ask you a question about H.R. 6443. We've heard from the Jamul tribal leadership that one of the parcels at issue within that particular bill has been pending in the administrative land into trust process at the Bureau since August 2015. That seems like an enormous amount of time. Is that the usual amount of time for parcels to be waiting to be placed into trust? And what could be done to speed up this process?
Yeah, it will obviously depend across different applications. I believe when the administration started, that average time was close to 3 years for the fee to trust. Right now, we're at about a 2-year level, and the goal is to get down to 1 year. The reason that it can be slow can be related to things such as litigation. The cost of title insurance for tribes can sometimes be challenging. Sometimes the cost related to environmental reviews. So the actions we're taking, which have led to some progress to date, and hopefully continued progress, include a couple of things. One is we're prioritizing filling vacancies for realty positions. And in addition to that, we also do need extra funding for more realty positions would be helpful. The President's FY 2024 budget requested additional funding for realty staff. But we're also, outside of the resources, we're taking management actions. One of them is proposed amendments to the 151 rule for fee to trust, which includes changes such as bringing some surveying activities from BLM back to BIA so that you have fewer handoffs in the process. By having it with one organization, we'd hope that streamlines it. Similarly, our trust services team has developed a tracker for every fee to trust application so that all Indian Affairs leadership can track that, ensure compliance, and hold people accountable. And there's also an external portal so that tribal leaders can see where their application is, so that enables their ability to ask questions. So we're hoping these and some other efforts will continue to bring that time down.
And I encourage you to continue with those types of actions, because I think that this is incredibly important that we speed up that process for our tribes around the country. Mr. Michael Erickson, I would like to ask you a question. You testified that in your testimony that the financial costs that the Colville tribe pays to recruit and train officers so that these officers are able to conduct patrols on their own. When an officer that you pay to train leaves, what kind of secondary budget impact does this have on the tribe?
Thank you for that question. So essentially, it's just money that you're, I wouldn't say throwing down the drain, but they go to some other municipality. So it's just, you got to reinvest that money again. And so then, hence our budget goes up, and a lot of those end up being tribal funds that we don't get otherwise. So it's just money we continue to have to reinvest in new employees that with this recruitment retention with this new bill, hopefully keeps those employees around, so we're not just training them up. Like Congressman Newhouse mentioned, we have really well-trained police officers and going to these other agencies because they are so well-trained and they have all the money we invested into them. So I think it's just costlier. Then you have a new recruit come in and have to reinvest that money, so.
Well, I hope that we can avoid that by passing this legislation and give you some additional tools to retain, to retain your officers. Ms. Pinto, I am running out of time, but I just want to quickly ask you, what would it mean to your tribal members to be able to return to their community and have services available to them there?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. It would mean everything. It would mean survival. It would mean continued our culture and traditions. It would mean our elders having a place to come back to and practice and language revitalization. It would mean the world to us. And I know time is of the essence here, and you want to do the right thing. I feel that I'm hurrying, and my council is hurrying. I brought an elder here, and we want this done. We want the wrongs of the past to be corrected, as you continue to state, and I appreciate that so much. It would mean our survival and continued existence. Thank you very much.